The child was small, his face red and scrunched as he squirmed lightly in the blanket. Tiny fingers peeked out, grasping at the air. David stared transfixed. This was his heir, his blood, his legacy. But as he looked closer, something deeper stirred within him, a connection he hadn't anticipated, a surge of protectiveness and wonder that left him breathless. "He's perfect," Susan murmured, her gaze soft as she watched David. For a moment, he couldn't speak. His throat tightened, and he felt an unfamiliar sting in his eyes. "May I?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Susan nodded, carefully transferring the baby into David's arms. The weight of the tiny life was both delicate and profound. As David held his son for the first time, a crack formed in the walls he had spent a lifetime building. Hours passed in a blur as David remained by Susan's side, the baby resting in a bassinet nearby. The medical staff came and went, offering congratulations and ensuring Susan's comfort. For once, David barely noticed them, his attention was entirely consumed by the child. As the baby slept, David turned to Susan, his expression uncharacteristically open. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. "Tired," she admitted with a small laugh, "but good. Really good." David nodded, his gaze drifting back to the bassinet. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything." Susan smiled faintly. "You've said that before." "This time I mean it more," he replied earnestly. "I thought this was just about a legacy, about ensuring what I've built didn't die with me. But now it feels like something more." Susan studied him, her blue eyes searching his face. "That's what happens when you let yourself feel, David. It's messy, but it's worth it." In the days that followed, David found himself re-evaluating everything he thought he knew. Holding his son, watching Susan interact with the baby, and reflecting on the journey they had shared forced him to confront truths he had long avoided. His son wasn't just an extension of his empire or a means of securing his name, he was a person, a tiny, vulnerable life filled with limitless potential. And Susan wasn't merely the woman who had carried his child, she was someone who had shown him resilience, kindness, and the importance of connection. One evening, as he stood by the nursery window in the townhouse cradling his son, David realized that his priorities had shifted. The cold calculations that had once defined his decisions no longer felt sufficient. His focus had shifted from building an empire to cherishing fleeting moments with his son and finding deeper connections with those he loved. The path that had once seemed clear and singular in purpose now felt uncertain, but in a strangely liberating way. David watched the baby sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, and felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. This child, his son, wasn't just a continuation of his legacy, he was a new beginning, a new chapter. And it was one that David was eager to write, not with ambition alone, but with love, understanding, and vulnerability. The years spent focusing solely on his career and building a reputation paled in comparison to the magnitude of what he had now, a family, a purpose beyond his professional identity. He had come to realize that true strength wasn't just in success or legacy, it was in the connections we make, the people we hold close, and the love we give and receive. As David stood in that quiet nursery holding his son, a soft smile crossed his face. The man he had once been, driven, relentless, focused only on his achievements, had transformed. Though the future remained uncertain, he now knew he was ready to face it with a different mindset, one where legacy would no longer be the only thing driving him, but the love he had for his family, the joy in small moments, and the hope for a better, more connected world. Thanks for watching this video, please subscribe for more.